Now, another impressive new MP has delivered his first speech to Parliament. The new Liberal member for Menzies is Keith Wolahan. Before politics, he was a barrister and a soldier. He commanded troops in Afghanistan. And he told Parliament how, like Shadow Defence Minister Andrew Hastie, he enlisted after seeing the horrors of 9/11 unfold.
I qualified as a commando and deployed to that country 3 times. My greatest honour was leading a platoon of Australian soldiers in combat. They were brave, they were kind, and they did Australia proud.
Now, that was near the start of what was a terrific first speech, and I'm happy to say that Keith joins me now from Canberra. Keith, it turns out, I hear from your speech that you were in Afghanistan with the commandos at the same time that Andrew Hastie was there, and also another Queensland Coalition MP, Philip Thompson. You're all in Afghanistan in the field at once at the same time in 2009. Now the 3 of you serving the Coalition in Parliament together.
No, that's right, Chris, and thank you so much for having me. I didn't know that until I got to Canberra, and I've obviously got very close to Andrew Hastie and Phil Thompson, and I suspected it, and as I interrogated them, I realised in October we were all there at the same time. To Phil Thompson's credit, he was injured at the time and was on his back in a hospital waiting to be evacuated, so there was no real chance for us to bump into each other. But it is quite an extraordinary thing that 3 members of the House were there at the same month.
Look, I think it's just a terrific thing for the Parliament and for the country too, to have 3 young, intelligent, passionate former soldiers, people who've been in the field, in the Parliament. That can only be good for the country. And I want to ask you too about your friend Greg Scher, who died in action. Now, you addressed his father, Barry, in your speech. And I just want to show the audience what you said about Barry, an episode you recounted in that speech.
One night, after a long day of pre-poll, Barry turned to me after I thanked him, and he said this: "I'll never ask you for anything, but whenever you can, say his name." And in that moment, I learned something about the words, "lest we forget." It is more than a line at the end of a Kipling poem. It is a heartfelt plea, a plea to let the lives that were cut short live on, to let their memory be a national blessing.
Keith, I think that was a wonderful ode to our fallen.
No, thank you, Chris. Barry's actually Greg's brother. Felix and Yvonne are his parents, and it was it really hit me hard. And I practiced that speech many times, but I must admit, holding it together, looking up at them, that was the most challenging part of the speech.
All right, I want to look at also the way you expressed your core political values in the speech.
My true north will always be family and the values of free enterprise and individual freedom. To put it another way, I believe in democratising prosperity and democratising power.
Yeah, they're pretty core right-of-centre values, Keith, but how are you going to work to enforce them, and how do you believe they came under threat during our pandemic response?
They're the challenge of our time. I'm a Melbourne MP, and there are only 3 federal Liberal seats within metropolitan Melbourne. There's a map in your studio here that shows our city, and it's a sea of red, teal and green. And one of the challenges I have and my party has is to reach out to a new generation. Most of the soldiers in my platoon were millennials, born between 1981 and 1996. They are the largest generation. And I'm in this place because I believe the Liberal Party values have something to say to them, and we can stand for them. The challenge is to communicate it effectively, and that's a challenge I'm prepared to meet in this place and throughout Melbourne.
Now, this is a very important point you made too, because you want to appeal to young people, you want to be able to achieve for young people, but you ask something of them in return. Have a look.
But I have a plea in return: to join more things. Join a Rotary. Join the Country Fire Authority. Coach a sporting team. Run the sausage sizzle. And maybe even join a political party.
It is such a simple plea, but it's so what society wants. You want people off social media, off their phones, getting involved in their communities and in political parties. I mean, dare I say it, they should join the bloody Labor Party or the Greens as well. People need to be involved, right? We don't have enough of it anymore.
I agree. I think there should be more people in political parties. They are key institutions of democracy. And without people in them, they're vulnerable and they're weak. And they're weak to special interest capture, whether it's unions or monopoly businesses looking to rent seek of parliamentarians. But if the political parties are large and they're from the grassroots community, I think they are better. And if the political parties are better, our democracy will be better. But more than that, Chris, the reason I gave that plea is because for people who turn up and volunteer, we all know it's so rewarding. And I think for people who don't volunteer in any way, I think they're missing out. And that's a shame if people are.
Well, thanks for sharing those thoughts, Keith. Congratulations on that first speech, and I look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Anytime. Thank you, Chris.
Keith Wolahan there, the new Liberal member for Menzies in Melbourne, a seat with a famous name, of course. He's an immigrant too. He's an immigrant to this country, came out as a kid from Ireland.